Hello again, folks. Martin Lane here from Orange Technology. And in this video, I want to talk to you guys about locking your clients into contracts. So for those of you who are like me, IT business owners, in the US, you guys are using the term MSP, Managed Services Provider. That's the hip term to use right now. More in Canada, we don't use the term MSP as much. We just use IT services provider. Whatever you want to call yourself. If you are providing services to clients that are paying you money, then what I want to talk about is locking those clients into a contract. I see this quite a bit. I see this from ISPs. I mean, we've seen it from cellular phone providers for many years, and now we're really starting to see it in the IT space, so the managed services space, the IT services space, all that. We're seeing these contractual obligations popping up, and I will say right off the bat, I am not a fan. I'm not a fan of contracts. There's a number of reasons that we'll chat about, but let's talk a little bit about what led up to these contracts. So, the IT services space has been changing quite a bit. In the past, it was always basically a break fix model, right? So you had these systems, you had these computers, here you go. And if you had problems, you phoned up your IT services provider and they showed up and fixed it and they billed you an hourly rate. I will say that is, for the most part, how my business is set up. We bill an hourly rate. We bill most of our clients an hourly rate. They're not locked into any kind of contracts or anything. There's no flat billing or anything like that. We do the same tasks as a managed services provider. So we will do proactive maintenance. We will do proactive security tasks, that kind of thing. But it's all billed hourly. There's no flat rates. There's no minimum billed hours every month, anything like that. What I've seen in the industry over the last few years is there's really this shift, this trend to move towards things like flat rate billing and contractual obligations. So what this means is basically, from what I've seen in the MSP space, there's a lot of interest in moving towards a model where you pay a flat rate per month per computer in an office for support. Right, so you figure out, what it's going to cost you, and you say, okay, it's going to be, $100 a month per computer in the office. You call me as much as you want for support, and that's it, right? The advantage to the client to that, the argument for the advantage to the client is its cost certainty. They know it's going to cost this much money per month, and that's it. I won't get billed anymore for support. Doesn't matter how often I call, doesn't matter how many times this computer dies on me, freezes up, whatever. I have no problem with that. That's the first thing. The second thing is the second argument for clients is that it provides a better level of service. So a lot of MSPs are saying, well, if you sign on to this flat monthly billing, you will get better service from us in terms of response time and things like that. I'm not so much a fan of that. My opinion is, if you have clients, if you have business clients and you're managing networks for these clients, if they call you on the phone and say, I need help, you should be out there and you should be fixing it right away. If you get calls from multiple clients at the same time, of course you prioritize. Yes, of course you do. You prioritize based on what the issue is, how long you think it'll take you. Is it a serious issue? Is there a complete outage? Or is this more of a sort of a more annoying thing for somebody, et cetera, right? So, of course you prioritize. There's no argument there. But I would argue there shouldn't be a better level of service just because you're willing to pay a flat fee every month for your service, for your computer support. There's a few other minor things I've heard thrown around there, and quite frankly, I actually can't remember most of them right now. But those are the main ones: is cost certainty and better level of service. That's how it's sold. For the business side, for the MSP side. The number one thing is guaranteed revenue. So, for example, if you have a client that you just bill hourly and they don't have any problems one month, is that actually true? Do not have any problems one month? I would argue that doesn't really happen that often. But if they have no problems that month, then they don't call you. You don't get any money. right? You don't get any revenue from that. So basically the idea is you charge this flat fee, and there will be times when your clients don't call you as often, and you will bill out more than you would have just billing out the hourly. And it's guaranteed revenue. You know you're going to make, $1,200 off this client every single month, and it's always going to be that. So that's kind of the argument on the MSP side. I'm kind of indifferent to it because honestly, in my experience, okay, and I'll go into a little bit of history about this with Orange, with my company. I've always billed straight hourly. Okay, hourly rate, no contracts, no fixed minimums, no flat rates, nothing. I've always just billed hourly, and I've always been at a very competitive rate that I'm comfortable with. And again, we just bill hourly. What I have found, and I mean, I've been doing this for 6 years now. What I have found, and I still have the original client that I first got 6 years ago. I still have that client. And that client particularly, so why I point that out is because I have a history with that client that spans 6 years. I can go every single month for the last 6 years. And I can tell you that outside of special projects, that would be new server deployments, major overhauls like phone systems and things like that. Outside of that, their monthly cost, the amount of monthly hours billed for support is, if you average it out, is pretty much the same in any 6 month period, right? For example, this isn't this particular client, there's actually another one, but I mean, I was looking at another one because they had asked, what is our average? And I went back 6 months, and literally like it was 8 hours one month, 9 hours the next month, 11 hours the following month, 8 hours that the following month, and then we went down to 7 hours actually. So they averaged out, pretty much in the middle there, 8-9 hours a month. That's what the average was. And I've seen that trend. If you are deploying computer networks that are built right, they're built stable, you're not hodgepodging or Mickey Mousing things, your networks will be stable, and pretty much you will see a pattern where the support calls you get will pretty much average out over any period of months. And that's what I found is the majority of our clients, especially when we bring on a new client, I always say, let's run 3 months and let's iron out any bugs or anything, and let's see what happens. And every time I've done that, when we go back and we look at the month by month, it always averages out to pretty much the same. Again, I just did this for a new client we brought on 3 months ago, and we did a 3 month look at support. This was outside, right when we brought them on. We did a server migration. They got some new hardware. So that's project based. That's outside of regular support. So we did I went and looked at it, and I looked at what the last 90 days of support, straight support were, 30 days at a time. And again, over those 3 months, literally it was 6 hours, 6 hours, and 7 hours. So I mean, it averages out. It really does. I would argue if it's not averaging out, I would argue that there's a problem with the systems that are in place. Server's not configured right, server wasn't deployed properly, you've got some hodgepodge thing or something's Mickey Mouse. And I've seen this stuff. Somebody's got this random PowerShell script that has to run once a week, otherwise half the users can't log in. I mean, I've seen these things. I've seen these Band-Aid fixes and these hodgepodge Mickey Mouse things that have been built, and that causes real problems. But if you're deploying, a straightforward network, Windows servers, whatever, and it's all running like it's supposed to be, then really you don't have, you don't have crazy high months of support and then really low months and really high months. And I mean, I've experienced this from clients with 3 workstations all the way up to 50 workstations, right? Well, more than that actually, 60-ish workstations. And it literally is pretty, when you average it out every month over, again, any 6 month term, it's pretty much the same every month, right? There's small variations. And a lot of the time, those variations are because of things that are happening. I would like a new computer. I would like you to deploy more Wi-Fi. I need remote access for these 8 staff who are going to be working some special project or something, right? Again, outside of large scale things like, replacing all the servers or something like that. Again, it averages itself out, right? So for anybody that's been following me, you guys know about a year ago, I purchased my largest competitor in the marketplace locally. When I acquired that competitor, they had a number of clients who were on fixed monthly rates. So they were paying, honestly, it was anywhere from 6 hours to 62 hours, 6 to 62 hours, flat monthly rates for support. And it varied because of the size of the networks. The 6 hour one's obviously a smaller network. The larger, or the $6,000 plus was obviously a larger network. So it varied, of course, based on the size of the network. That being said, what I found was, with the exception of one client, every single one of those clients did not like being on a fixed monthly rate. And the reason is every single one of them said, I don't know if I'm using all of those hours I'm paying for. Right? If I was just paying hourly, I know that I pay based on the hours that I need. I do not know if I am utilizing all of the hours I pay for in the flat monthly rate. So if I'm paying for 62 hours a month flat rate, am I actually getting 62 hours of support, or what if I only use 40? Right? And of course, I mean, that's how the business model is, right? The idea is you do not use these 62 hours, you only use 40 or 50 or whatever, so the MSP makes a little bit more profit. That's how it works. The trade-off is there is cost certainty for the client. Quite frankly, most of these clients weren't that concerned about the cost certainty. They understood it would fluctuate some, and it didn't really matter to them. They were more concerned that they weren't utilizing hours they were paying for. In other words, they felt ripped off. And this is really important, right? Because you can provide the best service possible. I will say, most of those networks were not running properly. They had a lot of issues. But forgetting about that, even if the networks were working perfectly, the client still feels ripped off because they don't know if they're using all of those hours, and they feel like they're not using all those hours. So even if the networks were running perfectly, no problems, no downtime, nothing, the client's still not happy because they feel ripped off. They understand the value of having professionals working on their network and keeping everything running and all this stuff, but nobody wants to pay for an hour if they're not using it, right? If you went to the dentist and you didn't have insurance and you were paying, and they billed you an extra hour at, I don't know, $200 an hour or something, or a lawyer. If you went to a lawyer and they did 1.5 hours of work, but they billed you 2.5 hours of work, even if the end bill, depending on what you're doing, might not be that big in the grand scheme of let's say it's a large business transaction that's worth millions of dollars, right? Really, the few $100s in a lawyer cost isn't really that important compared to the large transaction, but you still feel like you've been shafted for an hour, essentially, right? And that's what I really don't like about flat rate billing, right? And quite frankly, again, most of the clients didn't like it either. Again, every single one except for one client asked to be moved off of the flat rate billing. The one client that stayed on really liked the cost certainty. And I had a conversation with them and I told them, I'm going to be quite honest with you, the reason this flat rate billing exists in our industry is because it's cost certainty for you, it's guaranteed revenue for me, but there may be times when you don't use the full, X amount of hours that you're paying for. And they were okay with that. They actually said they're okay with that. They want to stay on it for cost certainty for them because of budgeting reasons. That was really important to them specifically. So I said, fine. And we agreed, and it's all fine, and there's no issues. But every other client except for that one wanted off of flat rate billing because, again, they felt that the potential for them to be cheated was too large with that. Okay? The next thing I don't like, and this is irregardless of flat rate billing or not, is locking clients into contracts. I don't like locking clients into contracts. And the reason for this is, it's pretty simple. I don't have any clients in any kind of contracts. No, I shouldn't say that. Actually, I do have one. And there's a very specific reason for that. There's a very specific deal that happened there. So there is one. But outside of that, I don't have any clients that are under any kind of a contractual obligation. And the reason for that is, well, there's actually many reasons. The primary reason for that is people don't like feeling locked in. They don't like feeling they don't have an out. The other reason is, you have to think about this. Why do you lock someone into a contract? There's two reasons. One, because you want to get some kind of guarantee of revenue. Okay, again, that's like the flat rate billing, but which a lot of the flat rate billing was actually a contractual obligation from the competitor that I purchased. Again, I let all those clients out of that. I said, no, there's no penalty. There was penalties built in based on how long was left, and there was notice requirements and all that stuff. And I said, guys, we're just going to get rid of that. We're just not going to have that. And they were very thankful, very happy. So that's one thing, is the guarantee of revenue. The second thing is if you have subsidized something to begin with, and this is kind of the deal I have with the one client, is they didn't have the capital to buy the hardware they needed, so I gave them the hardware and I billed them monthly for it. So they have an obligation to pay just because of that, because I've subsidized that hardware right off the bat, and they need to pay that back. That's really the main reason, not the only, but the main reason why I've got that. But so those are the two main reasons. Okay, the problem you run into is, so I mean, again, all of our clients, except for one, are on just month to month. Well, not even month to month. It's just at will service, right? So they can come, any client come at any time and say, I don't want your service anymore, and we'll be done as of that day. They will get a final bill, and that is it. I have had to let some clients go who, and we'll probably do another video about this, how to let clients go. I have had to let clients go, because we weren't just a fit. I've had clients that I've had trouble getting paid from. Doesn't happen very often, but it has happened. I've let those clients go. But other than that, I mean, we generally have not lost a client ever. There have been some circumstances where somebody's moved on for some specific reasons, but I would not say that we were ever fired out of anger or something, right? So, I have quite a few clients, many clients, and they're all on basically at-will service, right? And the way I bill is monthly, so I bill at the end of every month. That's why I was saying monthly, but it's basically at-will anytime. And again, to be honest, I still have that first client that I got 6 years ago. And the reason that I still have that client that I got 6 years ago is because our service is good. My rates are fair, my service is good, my staff is competent. I've been told, I'm not trying to extend an ego here or something, but I've been told that we run a good operation. I survey my clients twice a year. I use SurveyMonkey, actually, for those of you that need to do surveys. SurveyMonkey is really good. I use SurveyMonkey to survey our clients. I always get back really good results. Not to say that there's not something we can improve on. There's always something you can improve on. Do not ever think you cannot improve on your service somehow. There's always a way. But that being said, the majority of our reviews are excellent. 4 out of 5, 5 out of 5 is pretty much the standard. Anything lower than that, and quite frankly, I'm not happy, and it's something I need to look at and deal with. But other than that, I mean, most of our clients are happy with us, right? And if your clients are happy with you, there's no reason to lock them into a contract. Because if you lock them into a contract, then they feel stuck. Even if they're happy with your service, they still feel stuck. They can't move on if they choose to. And people want to have that choice. They want to have the option to move on if they want, right? I'm not saying they want to. And just because the option is there doesn't mean that they are going to move on or want to move on. But that option needs to be there. If it's not there, they feel trapped. And even if your service is good, even if they're happy with you, they still feel trapped. And that's what people in general don't like, right? We don't like feeling trapped. So that's the big reason. Second reason is why I don't like locking anybody into a contract is if something happens, right? Whether it's your fault, whether it's the client's fault, whether it's neither of your fault and something just happened or whatever. If one day your client is not happy with you anymore, you want them to be able to cut their ties with you. You want them to be able to fire you if that's what happens, right? Or you fire them or whatever, right? You want that option there. The last thing you want is to have a client who doesn't like you but has to stay with you because they don't want to pay to break a contract. You don't want that. Because if you have that, that client will be angry, that client will be bitter, that client will not treat you nicely, they will not treat your staff nicely, they will not speak nicely about you to others. They will tell everybody they can find that you locked them into a contract and they can't get out, even though as soon as they can, they're finding a new provider because you suck for reason 1, 2, 3, 4, or whatever, right? And that's the biggest thing. The best way to deal with a problem client is to simply cut your ties with them and move on. There are some clients you cannot make happy. I've had this, right? I've had a client, we did a big server deployment for them. They got new workstations. Everything was running smoothly. We were administrating the network. And how do I put this? They were being unreasonable with some of the complaints and requests that they wanted. They wanted a bunch of new work done, but they wanted it covered under kind of a warranty of the installation of the new server, but it had nothing to do with the new server. And basically what it came down to is they didn't really want to pay, right? They understood they had to pay an upfront cost for new server, new equipment, and new workstations and things like that, but they didn't want to pay any ongoing costs for support. They wanted that all free, right? And it wasn't something where they couldn't pay. They absolutely couldn't pay. They could pay. They just didn't want to. They wanted that service for free. And I wound up, basically, I had a couple meetings with them, kind of went back and forth. I thought it was going to be okay, but it just wasn't. And finally, I just said, look, guys, this isn't working. If this is the cost, this is our hourly cost. I have offered you flat rate billing. Again, I don't like it, but I did offer it. I said this is something we could do if you really insist on it. I've offered the hourly rate, which is very competitive. Quite frankly, it's the best in the industry locally. I've offered a number of things, and they didn't really want to take any of them. And they kept wanting things done, and I kept saying, well, you're going to get billed hourly for it, and then they would argue with me about that, and I finally just said, look, guys, this isn't going to work. We just need to move on, right? You please find a new service provider. I went in, I did resets on all their administrative passwords. I let them choose their new administrative passwords, so I didn't have them anymore. We'll do another video about that later on as well. And just moved on. Again, if I had them in a contract and I was like, well, no, you have to pay like $200 every month, or whatever amount. I'm not saying that's what it would have been. I'm just using an arbitrary number, but if you have to pay X amount of dollars every month, they would have been mad about it, and it would not have turned out well. What happens now is, if they choose to find another provider or whatever, they choose to find another provider. What I haven't exposed myself and my company to is, a continued relationship that is poor, and possibly that client saying things that are not nice about me to others, right? Again, I live in a smaller area. Again, my city is about just shy of 30,000 people as a population. It's not very big. A lot of people know each other. This is more important in smaller areas as opposed to larger metropolitan areas. But nonetheless, doesn't matter where you are, word of mouth is the number one thing that can make or break you, right? If you get a bad reputation and people say bad things about you, that will affect your business. I'm a firm believer that will absolutely affect your business. On the flip side, if you are, doing nice things and and fair things, and people are happy with you, they will say nice things about you, and that will also get you work. Referral work is the best kind of work you can get, absolutely. And you know, it's not worth keeping a client and billing them, a few $100 or whatever, regularly if they're going to badmouth you. That's just not worth it. Um, Again, unless they owe you money for something, again, you subsidize hardware or something like that, where you are owed money, then yes, absolutely. But otherwise, really, it's not worth it, right? I would be more happy to let go of a client who who is who is not happy with me, or I'm not happy with them, and go find a client who is then happy with me and I'm happy with them, right? Having a client that doesn't like you is just not worth it. You can search YouTube, you can search Google. There's so many stories about this from every kind of industry out there. I could speak all day on this, but it's already been spoken on for, I don't know, if you added up all the YouTube videos about not hanging on to clients who are not happy with you, you could probably watch for an entire year. But bottom line is it's not worth it. So that is the second reason I don't like locking people into any kind of a contract, because then there is that assumption on both sides that you have to fulfill that obligation. Even if you don't like each other anymore, even if something's happened and the relationship is sour, you have to fulfill that. And that's just not worth it. In my opinion, that is just not worth doing. So those are the main points. I mean, there's lots of other little things and little reasons why it doesn't make sense to lock people into contracts. Again, a lot of people, a lot of business owners that I find, a lot of MSPs, they're worried about this locking people into contracts and getting this recurring revenue, and they're always worried about, the revenue number and how much money I'm getting from each client, and I'm not saying you shouldn't be, budgeting your revenue, and you shouldn't be budgeting your growth. And, if you're a business owner, you have to worry about your expenses, how many employees do you need, how many employees can you afford, all that stuff, right? I mean, you absolutely have to do that. But that being said, the first thing you should focus on is providing a good quality service at a fair rate. If you are providing a good quality service at a fair rate, your clients don't really have any reason to want to leave, right? There's no reason to lock them in, because there's no reason they're going to leave you if they're happy with your service and they're happy with what they're paying you, right? I mean, okay, maybe there's the odd time, somebody downsizes and they don't need you as much anymore, or things like that. But I mean, on the whole, clients are just going to keep using you if they're happy with you, right? I mean, where do you bring your car to get serviced? Do you generally go to the same place, right? I mean, the oil change places, most people will generally go to the same oil change place if they're happy with it. If they've never had an issue, or even if they've had an issue and it's been resolved, they'll still go to the same place, right? Again, the competitor that I bought out a year ago had a very bad reputation. Like I'm surprised this guy didn't get sued. If this guy was in the U.S., he'd have been sued. Bottom line, they would have been sued. But I mean, there were networks that were crashing every other day. Servers going down. People would come into work in the morning and nothing would work. And this happened there was one client, this happened literally every other day. Literally, right? Like I'm looking through the history of trouble tickets for this client from before I purchased, right? So just to get a little bit of the history. And literally like every other day, it's like, oh, the server's down again. And this went on for months, a year almost. And my competitor didn't get fired. They didn't get fired. Why? I don't know. It's very interesting. And again, it's another topic for another video, but it's very hard to get fired as well. It's actually not that easy. There has to be a specific reason why it happens. But it's very hard to get fired. So anyways, based on all of that, again, if your number one priority as a business owner, as a technology professional, is making sure that your clients are happy, that you're providing a good service at a fair rate, then you don't have to worry about locking them in as a client. It's just something you don't need to do. So yeah, that's my thoughts on contracts and locking people in. Again, I'm not a fan. I don't like being locked in myself. I don't like doing it to others. So yeah, I'll see you guys at the next video.